Hi, hello. Excuse me. In today's video, I will be telling you about fasting. I will be telling you about coffee, a cup of coffee. So, yeah, if that's something for you, then stay tuned and off we go. This is the next section from my book, Piglet. And yeah, I start with a cup of coffee before my dad's funeral. So, that was a cup of coffee I got. And after that cup of coffee, I couldn't feel the presence of somebody behind me. So I went to the sink to leave this cup, when I already drank my coffee, had my coffee. And I couldn't feel, I just knew that, I passed the table, and by the table there were people sitting, and I didn't know. Like, I didn't feel it. Uh, I know it with because I saw them and I didn't feel that there was something or someone behind me. Which I think we always feel it, when somebody stands behind us in a queue, for example. So yeah, and then I also had a cup of coffee and two cookies when having a conversation with my sisters, quite a serious one. And then I just had this impression of staring at one point and not being quite aware of what was going on, like not being so receptive with gaining the information from the outside and not being so fast with analysis of what has been said and what has somebody shown me with their body gestures and so on. So um, definitely with those things, if you want to be more in control and more receptive to the outside, then fasting helps with that a lot. It clears out your body. And I also remember I had a cup of coffee when I was about to start this new job with, and getting the clients for buying toys. And when working on the phone with clients, all of a sudden, not only, I had like very very fluent English and very nice accent, like with no effort, like so naturally, but I also could access my Dutch language. And when I just remember when learning Dutch, it was really really hard and I could never say it so fluently, like when I talked on that phone. Yeah. um, And when it comes to, the work of hypnosis and, on illusions, I remember I brought my mother mac chicken because I worked for McDonald's and I wanted to, you know, try it out with her. And, I had also some discounts for that. So, yeah, I used it and I bought mac chickens and fries, and fries were already cold, which was plausible, okay, on the way, but mac chicken was, felt like outdated, like, it was old meat. But I worked at McDonald's and I know this meat is never old because it never stays for the second day, um, so it couldn't be old. And I also had some, memories when, living in Gothamera Street. I bought dumplings from the same place, dumplings that I liked, and those dumplings didn't taste anymore. I didn't all of a sudden like them, like, but nothing changed. It was the same brand and the same shop. And then uh, I also remember about the cheesecake that we had in Wyspiański as restaurant. That was just a high school trip, but they would say that it smelled of fish. Or when we went on a high school trip to Ukraine, then we got the water in restaurants, and that water was tasted salty, which was kind of impossible. It was mineral water closed in a bottle, so it was hard to drink. But I think this is an illusion because when I had a cup of coffee with my prof, we went to Sofa Pink, and yeah, there were quite a lot of people. I've never seen so many people in this town, in Tarnów, in Sofa. Um, And the cup of coffee, I took a sip of drink and it tasted like, the type of coffee my mother used to drink. She doesn't drink instant, she drinks something else, And I'm like, oh no, I didn't know there's such coffee. So it changed the taste. Like, within the same cup of coffee, I could taste something different. So, I believe with each and every of these cases, you could have some influence of hypnosis on your taste, but not only, because my impression is that my reception changed quite quickly with at least two of these mentioned examples. So yeah, I think there might have been something else to that coffee too. And I also remember when I just bought cake Ferrero Rocher. I bought it for my parents, and my parents, rarely got like really something from me. So I chose the type of cake that I would like to try on my own, and I chose it from the place that I loved. I love that place because it had always so many beautiful cakes. So there were so many beautiful cakes in that cafe. It's called a Cup Cafe in Tarnów. And they had it and they told me they got diarrhea after it, which was not nice. But today I just think they just simply lied. Um, and when the very first time I fasted, like several years ago, I fasted when I still lived at home. Still do, but but there were moments when I moved out for short periods. So when I fasted for the very first time, I remember that I had some pain in the body, and a lot of things were happening in the system that gave me a feeling of being scared that something was off. And I started to eat. So what I had was bone broth, so this meat jelly meat, and I had it, and that also didn't help because when you fast, you have to be careful when you come out of fast. You have to not eat meat, first of all. That's the first rule. So you eat less and you eat some fruits and probably something mashed. That's best to start with yogurts. And I remember when I was fasting during the time when I was learning about witchcraft, and I was learning about what they do. So I didn't want my mother to know, so I would keep the food in the wardrobe and then try to throw it away in the toilet. But I would do it after a few hours. I would wait for her sometimes to go to sleep and throw it at night. So because I did so, after a few hours, I would take out the food and I had a feeling it was still hot and it had very distinctive smell. So I believe it was done, just my senses were heightened because it was impossible to have the food still hot, right, after such amount of time. So my senses were somehow heightened or influenced by something, but I believe by hypnosis, so that I would actually go and eat the food. Because once you start fasting, of course, and you are in a cycle after 3 days, then you're totally fine and you can go easily, much easier into longer fast. But if you keep eating, then it's a problem to stop, and to actually start the fast. So also, during the time when I was discovering witchcraft and I was writing the book about them, so a lot of the times when I was coming out of fast, and I would eat something and I didn't feel that I ate it. And, there was a moment when after the fast, I would just eat some fruits and I just felt so wonderful in my stomach. And my stomach could tell that this was good, although I was never an aficionado of fruits. But then it quickly was affected with hypnosis. And I tell you that because I already did my very first longer fast in Holland. So this is what I would be expecting, like having more energy, having more willpower, feeling much stronger, like psychologically stronger that I did it and I overcome it. And yeah, and feeling more energized. That's that's most of all. But when I was doing this in the environment surrounded by the witches, then they give me a totally different experience and they try to change it. So a lot of the times I would just feel very like, you ate, you didn't feel the satiety, you didn't feel the food in your stomach, and you felt like eating yet once again. So I would start eat much more. I would have like, felt like having two dinners, and I would come like 6 times to the kitchen to search for some food. Um, yeah, is there anything else? And then I would be more often exposed to food that would be either covered with mold, or I would be more often exposed to food that would be not fried enough. So, whenever, even if I didn't say anything because there was no point, I assumed it could happen that you didn't fry the fish enough. But my mother would just tell me, she would yell at me that the fish was fried when I was just trying to heat it without saying a word, just to heat it so that I would make sure that it was fried enough, because I was already quite aware of what she does, what she did. So when I just started to heat the fish, she started to yell that it was fried enough, and when I opened it, then it was just raw salmon inside. And she did it, quite so often, because 3 times I fried it, twice at least I think I was eating it like thinking, I think I'm having raw fish. And it's probably the point is, when do you have it after a fast? So um, most of the time she would just, when I was fasting, she would just make some favorite of my meals. And when something was also expired, she would always say that it was good, and she would drink it in front of my eyes to show me, to model to me that it was actually good. And most of the things that, if they are rotten, they would be just staying in the fridge. So, you know, um, and when I was coming out of the fast, then there was, and I was ready to eat something, and I missed the food because, I was coming out of the fast. I wanted to eat something good. And then there would be only prepackaged food, and in the past, I just have no recollection of having such things in the house. So, but anyway, I also have this memory when I fasted in Holland for the very first time, and I was selling tickets for the boat in Marken Express. So this time I was selling for, from for the ticket from Marken to Volendam, and I was on the other side, and I was close to a restaurant. So I was in a place where behind my bars there was this garden from the restaurant, and they were selling. I would just remember like, about 10 boys sitting behind me, and they have ordered 10 hamburgers with fries, and those hamburgers were very big. And I was sitting back to them, and I just remember having it on my mind, like seeing hamburgers and seeing those plates in my visual screen. And that, I believe, is also the work of hypnosis, when somebody sends you an image, when somebody sends you a thought, and when somebody sends you a feeling that is tied to it. So, yeah, in the case of food, that would be the feeling of hunger. And I think, yeah, it happens more often, because when I was with my mother in Great Britain for the very first time, we went on a boat, and just somebody from the service, somebody who worked on the boat, sat in front of us, and they had a salad. So we didn't want to buy anything on the boat, and we just felt awkward with somebody eating in front of us. And we, at the same time, we also felt sad. So it's not like, telling the staff to not to eat in front of the customers, but, just eat it in a place, I don't know, maybe behind the bar, or in the place that's designed for it, right? Um, And I think, yeah, when I was fasting in my hometown, I went with my sister, and I was modeled the food a bit too, because, I had to have something like finally. So I decided to have ice cream. So she obviously ordered a cake, the cake that I didn't want to, I refused several times, and the cake that I even didn't like such type of cake. And yeah, and then two girls came around and they ordered big plates and they were eating in front of us. So I think they were modeling, because when you look at somebody eating, then immediately you want to, as mirroring naturally happens in a conversation, like when we sit and talk to someone, we start to reflect their gestures, and very often the same happens with food. When people eat in front of us, then we are more likely to eat something. Or yeah, very often it happened that when I was fasting, then my eyes, my head would just go naturally, not naturally, I wouldn't say that, but it would go to food, to sweets or something. So I think then my eyes and my head would be directed with the energy work to. Yeah, so I think that's it for today's video. If you're curious about my book Piglet, if you want to learn more about how I was discovering the use of covert hypnosis and how my experience of the system looks like, and what the gypsy do with regard to magic, how do they um, how do they operate? Then I think you can try out Piglet. You can learn more about my book Piglet, and you can buy it too. And you can also check out my course, Amelia. So it's a course that tells you more about how identities of gays, pedophiles, and stripper were created. So if that's something for you, click the link below and you'll find all the info in the link of this film, in the description of this film, and on my website, Facebook, Instagram accounts. And if you like this video, please like, share, and subscribe. And thanks for watching.